Okay, guys, we are going to do writing and solving inequality notes today. We are going to review how to write and solve them. So our first problem that we have is read and understand portion. It says Juan has 103 baseball cards. This is at least 7 more than 2 times as many cards as Mia. Write and solve an inequality to find the number of baseball cards Mia has. So what do we know? We need to list the important facts needed for this problem to be solved. The first thing that I need to know is how many baseball cards does Juan have? Over here in the read and understand section, I'm going to underline that I know Juan has 103 baseball cards. So I'm going to write it in the first section of what do we know. Juan has 103 baseball cards. The next super important thing that I need to look at is what keywords am I going to find to help me figure out what inequality symbol I'm going to use. I can find these 2 words in the second sentence, and they are at least. So I'm going to make a little second list, and I'm going to put the words at least. This tells me that at least it can be equal to 103 baseball cards. However, it also could be more. So 103 baseball cards could be more than what Mia has, or it could be equal to what Mia has. That tells me that my at least sign is going to be greater than or equal to. The last thing that I need to make sure that I know is how many cards does Mia have? I don't know the exact number. However, in the second sentence after the words at least, it does tell me a description. It says that she has at least 7 more than 2 times as many cards as Mia. So I need to write down this description, and this should be the last important thing that I need to know in order to write and solve this inequality. So 7 more than 2 times Mia. That should be it for the what do we know section. The next thing that we want to do is what do we want to find out? We need to explain this in our own words. We need to define our variable. I'm going to pick X. Now, X has to be equal to whatever we're asked to find. So I need to look back at the read and understand portion of our notes, and it tells me in the very last sentence, it says, write and solve an inequality to find the number of baseball cards Mia has. So X should equal number of cards Mia has. That should be it for the what do we know section, or what do we want to find out. We defined our variable. Down here in the solve, first thing that I need to do is I need to write my inequality. I'm going to start with the number of cards that Juan has. I know Juan has 103 baseball cards. Up in the important section, the what do we know thing, the important facts we wrote down. We wrote down for our second little bullet point, it said the words at least. We said that the words at least means the greater than or equal to sign. I need to put that into my inequality. The last thing is I need to write down in my inequality the description of Mia's cards. It says 7 more than. So if I have more than you, more than means that I'm going to be adding that amount. So I can put 7 plus. Then after the words, it says 2 times. Times means multiplying. If X represents the number of cards Mia has, it's 2 times the amount that Mia has. So it should give me 2X. From here, I need to use inverse operations to solve my inequality. I'm going to draw my line because I know some people like when we do. If you do not, you do not have to draw the line. The first thing I need to look for is, are there any simplifying terms that I can combine? No. There are like terms, but they are not on the same side as the inequality sign. The next step, I need to look for any adding or subtracting. Now, I do see plus 2x. However, we know that the last step should involve getting rid of the number with the variable. So I want to focus on any other numbers that do not have a variable attached. Remember, the variable is our letter that we picked. What we are adding to the 2x is that 7 more than. I can get rid of that positive 7 by doing the inverse operation. 7 minus 7 would cancel those terms, and I end up with 0. So on both sides of my inequality sign, I need to subtract 7. When I do, these cancel, and my 2x comes down. 103 minus 7 gives me 96 cards left, and my inequality sign still stays the same. My last step that I need to look for is, are there any multiplying or dividing things happening? Yes, there is multiplication happening. When you have a 2 and an X next to each other, or any number next to a letter, multiplication is happening. We want to do the inverse operation, so we want to divide by 2 on both sides of the inequality sign. Here I am dividing by 2. When I do, these cancel and I'm left with X. My sign has stayed the same all throughout this entire process. 96 divided by 2 should give me 48. My last step is I need to write my final answer. It says, what is your answer in terms of the situation? So it's asking me, what does my answer mean in words? It means that Mia has 48 cards or less. That is it for the front side. Please flip to the back side now of your notes. And we are now going to solve more inequalities. Number 2, it says, Judy has 15 books in her library. She bought several books at a thrift store on Saturday. She wants no more than 84 books in her library. How many books can she buy at the thrift store? My first step that I'm going to do is I'm going to underline very important things that I need to know in order to write and solve my inequality. The first important thing that I read was how many books Judy has in her library. This is in the first sentence. Judy has 15 books in her library. The next thing is the key words that I need to determine what inequality sign I'm going to use. I can find this in the third sentence. She wants no more than. Those are my key words that are going to tell me what inequality sign I'm going to use. The next thing is, how many books does she want in her library? So I can find this after the words no more than. This is going to be 84 books. The last thing that I need to find is what am I asked to solve for? This is going to help me define my variable. It can be found in the very last sentence, which is my question. It says, how many books can she buy at the thrift store? I need to define my variable. I'm asked how many books. I'm going to pick the letter B. So B equals books. Knowing this, I can now start building my inequality. Judy has 15 books in her library. My first step is to include the books she already has. The next step is she bought several books at the thrift store, so she's adding to her collection. So I want to add how many of her books that she bought. So I'm going to add B. The next thing is I want to look back at those key words that I underlined. No more than. No more than means I can have exactly 84 books in her library, or she can have less than. My sign should be less than or equal to. And it is going to be less than or equal to those 84 books that she wants maximum in her library. From here, I need to see if there are any like terms that I can combine. No, there are not. The next step is I want to see if there's any adding or subtracting happening. Yes, I do see adding 15. Those 15 books represent how many she's already had in her library before she went to the thrift store. Because I'm adding 15, I want to use inverse operations, so I want to subtract 15 from both sides. When I do, these cancel, and I'm left with B less than or equal to 84 minus 15 would give me 69. So in words, it says that the books can be less than or equal to 69. So at the thrift store, which I'm going to write this over here in my open space, she can buy no more than 69 books. Number 3. As a salesperson, Gianna earns $150 per week plus $15 per sale. This week, she wants her pay to be at least $270. How many sales, S, does Gianna need to make? So my first step is I need to underline any important things for me to have or know to make my inequality. The first thing is it's going to be in the first sentence. There's actually a couple. The first thing I'm going to underline is she earns $150 per week. The next thing I want to underline is how much she makes per sale. The next thing I'm going to underline is the key words that are going to tell me or help me figure out what inequality symbol I'm going to use. These can be found in the second sentence. It says at least $270. The last thing I want to underline is they have actually already given us what we are going to find and how we're going to represent it. In the last sentence, it says how many sales, comma, S. This means they've already defined their variable, S equals sales. So underneath of here, I'm just going to repeat S equals sales. The first thing that I want to do is I want to put the $150 she earns per week. The next thing is I'm going to add this amount to her sales because it also, up in the first sentence, it says $150 plus, which I've there put into the rectangle. So this tells me my math operation that is going to happen. Since it is $15 per sale, per means multiplication. I want to do 15 times the letter S. The last thing is the words at least mean greater than or equal to because it could equal $270 or more. From here, I'm going to draw my line down. And then, first step, I'm going to look to see if I can simplify any like terms. No. There are like terms, however, they are not on the same side as the inequality sign. Step 2, I want to see if there's any adding or subtracting that I can get rid of. On the left side, I do see that $150 being added to 15S. Because I see addition, I want to do the inverse operation, which means I'm going to subtract. Here is subtracting 150 on the left side, and here is 150 being taken away from the right side. When I do, these cancel. My 15S comes down. My sign has stayed the same, and 270 minus 150 give me $120 left over. The last step that I need to check for is any multiplying or dividing. There is multiplication happening between 15 and S. I know this because a number next to a letter means multiply. I also know this because up in the first sentence it says $15 per sale. Per means multiplication. In order to get rid of the multiplication, I need to do the inverse operation, which is division. So I will divide both sides by 15. When I do, these cancel. My S comes on down. My symbol has stayed the same, and 120 divided by 15 would give me 8. In words, my answer would represent she needs to make, nope, just kidding. She needs to sell 8 or more items. Now time to go away from the word problems. We are just going to strictly be solving and graphing inequalities now. Number 4. Again, I'm going to run through the steps to double check that I get everything. Number 1, there are no like terms that I can simplify. Step number 2, I need to look to see if there's any adding or subtracting. In number 4, there is no addition or subtraction. The last step I need to check for is any multiplying or dividing. I can see that there is multiplication happening between 6 and X, so I need to do the inverse operation to get rid of it. When I do, I need to divide both sides by 6. When I do, these cancel. My X comes down. My sign stays the same. 30 divided by 6 would give me 5. From here, I already noticed that my number line has already been filled in, so I need to graph it. My first step is deciding whether it is an open circle or a closed circle. Please remember that if it is just a less than or greater than symbol, which I will write up here, those equal an open circle. If it is a less than or equal to or greater than or equal to symbol, this is where it's going to be the closed circle. I can see that my symbol in number 4 is just a regular less than symbol, so that tells me it's going to be an open circle on the number 5. I'm going to put it above hand that is also perfectly fine. Because it is a less than symbol, I need to draw my arrow pointing to all of the numbers that are less than 5. I know that it should be pointing to the left. And make sure there's an arrow on the end. Number 5. Again, I'm going to solve this inequality and graph my answer on the number line down below. Number 5, the first step I need to do is see if there's any like terms that I can combine. No, there is not any like terms that I can combine. The next step that I need to check for is there any adding or subtracting? Yes, I do see plus 9, so I want to get rid of it by doing the inverse operation. The inverse of addition is subtraction. I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. When I do, these cancel. My x comes down. My symbol stays the same. And 11 minus 9 would give me 2. I need to graph this. So the first step I need to look for is this going to be an open or a closed circle? If I look at my sign and I look at the key I just made on number 4, it should be a closed circle because this is a greater than or equal to symbol. In my answer, it is 2, so I'm going to put a closed circle above the number 2. Now I need to make my arrow point to all of the numbers greater than the number 2, so my arrow should point to the right. Number 6. The first step I need to do is see if there's any like terms that I can combine. No, there are no like terms that I can combine. The second step, I need to look to see if there is any addition or subtraction. I do see a number 9 being added to the 3x on the left side of my inequality symbol. Because I don't want to add this anymore, I want to subtract to get rid of it. So subtraction is the inverse operation. When I do, I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. These cancel and my 3x comes down. My symbol stays the same, and 12 minus 9 should give me 3 left over. The last step that I need to do is I need to check for any multiplying or dividing. There is multiplication happening between 3 and x, so I need to do the inverse operation, which is division, and divide both sides by 3. When I do, these cancel, my x comes down, my sign stays the same. 3 divided by 3 would give me 1 as my final answer. When I start graphing, I need to look at the symbol. My symbol is x is greater than 1. Because this is just a regular greater than symbol, that tells me I'm going to need an open circle above the number 1. Then, because it's a greater than symbol, I need to point my arrow to all of the numbers that are greater than the number 1. So it should point to the right. This is our last question. Step number 1, I need to look for any simplifying terms. I have no like terms that can be combined. Step number 2, I need to look to see if there are any adding or subtracting. I do see the 4 being subtracted, so I need to do the inverse operation, and I'm going to add 4 to both sides. When I do, these cancel. My 3x comes down, my sign stays the same, and 5 plus 4 should give me 9. The last step I need to check for is any multiplying or dividing. There is multiplication happening between 3 and x, so I need to do the inverse operation, which is divide both sides by 3. When I do, these cancel, and I should have x is less than or equal to 9 divided by 3 should give me 3 as a final answer. When I'm looking to graph this on my number line, my symbol is a less than or equal to sign. Because it is an equal to sign, that tells me it's going to be a closed circle above the number 3. Because it is a less than sign, I want my arrow to point to all of the numbers less than the number 3. So my arrow should point to the right, the left. My apologies.